Hey everybody, welcome. It's Ty Hicks. I'm very excited to be speaking with you today. Today I want to be addressing a question I'm getting, pretty much every week, and it's a great question and one that deserves, a very thorough answer. And the question is, Ty, how can, the real elimination of depression and anxiety take place? Because a lot of people have had the experience, and by all means I did too, when I was dealing with depression as well, of being able to feel like you're making some progress, but then eventually feeling like you're backsliding back into depression and anxiety, and feeling always like it's going to be some part of your life no matter what you do. And so, unfortunately, this stems directly from the broken patient myth, this idea that you're always going to have to live with these, disorders. And it's a very prevalent and dangerous myth to buy into, because it's one of those things that when you believe it, if you believe you're going to be depressed for the rest of your life, you will be. I mean, that's really just as simple as it gets. So if you believe that you can actually eliminate it, then you actually create an opportunity to make that so. But the disorders of the mind are such that they respond very strongly to the beliefs that you hold about them. And when you are in a state of certainty that your problem is not going to get resolved, that's the first way to guarantee that it won't get resolved. So that's the first thing I would say. But the second thing to say here is there's a very important principle that you need to understand if you really want change to last. So regardless of how it is that you address this, you have to understand that unless you actually take full control of this principle, it's just never going to happen for you. You will continue to backslide. And so, we call this the grand piano principle. And so what happens is, if you imagine having a piano, if you have a piano that is left untuned for a very long period of time, it will obviously, go out of tune. And what happens is the metal strings inside of the piano, after a long period of time, literally become warped in the wrong direction. They become out of tune, and they literally become warped in that direction. They become conditioned to be out of tune. And so what will happen is, if you have a piano, you may know this, you may have to call out somebody who's going to professionally tune the piano. And what will happen is, if you've left that piano untuned for a very long period of time, they have to tune it on day one, and then they have to tune it again in like a couple of days or like a week. And then they have to come back out in a couple of weeks, and then a month, and then a couple of months, and then maybe 3 or 4 months. And, then they might need to keep an eye on it every 6 months or so. So why in the world would you need to tune a piano, several times if it's been out of tune? Well, the reason you need to do that is because it's become conditioned to be out of tune for a long period of time. Those strings become warped in the wrong direction. So they have to literally be reconditioned back into the right state. And so what you need to understand is that your nervous system works in exactly the same way. The neural networks inside of your nervous system that control the emotions that you experience, the thoughts that you think each day, and the behaviors that you engage in become linked based off of what types of patterns of thought, emotion, and behavior you engage in the past. So if you get yourself caught up in negative patterns of thought where you're perpetually engaged in negative self-talk over and over and over again, it becomes habituated. It becomes literally a physically stronger neural pathway in your brain. So that means that you're more easily able to go to that negative place psychologically. If you have a perpetually conditioned and practiced pattern of being very angry and defensive, that will become your habituated response to things, okay? And similarly, this is also where a lot of people with OCD find themselves in a very, very dark place, because they've engaged in one little behavior at one point in time, and then they engaged in it again in a similar situation, and again and again and again, and then all of a sudden that pathway becomes so freaking strong that they can't seem to break it. And it becomes something that they feel like they're tied to, and it becomes this identity they have that it's, some everlasting disorder, when in fact it's simply a neurological pathway that's been built up over time through habituated actions that can be weakened. So I know you've also experienced this as well too, where, maybe you had a habit for a long time, maybe you were on a diet or you were working out, and then you dropped it. And what happens is those old strong patterns can become dissipated over time. As opposed to those neural pathways being super strong, they can end up dissipating and going away. So the plasticity of your nervous system is not to be underestimated. And the real beauty and the power of understanding this is that you can literally remold and reshape yourself. You can have habit be something that enslaves you, or you can use the power of habit to actually make it so that you are designing your most extraordinary life. You can make it so that when you wake up in the morning, you feel how you want to feel, as opposed to just feeling like you're in a state of reaction to every single one of your days. Now, all of a sudden, you have an opportunity to be able to design an extraordinary life, right? You can design what emotions it is that you want to be experiencing in response to adversity and difficult times in your life. You know, instead of going into a panic attack when something doesn't go your way, how would you like to respond instead? You can simply eliminate and weaken the old neurological pathways and reinforce and build up the new neurological pathways that will serve you until they become automatic. And so when people ask me, Ty, why is it that my depression or anxiety, you know, I'll make some progress on it, but I always backslide? This is why. The reason is that maybe you got a little bit of a quick win. Maybe you found a little bit of a Band-Aid solution or a coping strategy or something that enabled you to make a little bit of progress. But the problem is you did not fully understand and take control of your subconscious conditioning. And to your credit, that's a very difficult thing to take control of when you don't know exactly how to do so. So it's a tough thing to do. And if you don't understand how to actually do that, you're always going to be backsliding. You know, and you've probably experienced this. You've had, you know, one step forward, two steps back, probably your whole life dealing with this issue. And that's exactly what will continue to happen unless you actually understand, you know, how to turn this around. So the real solution is to be able to understand exactly how to condition your mind at the subconscious level. You know, so we come up with we have a lot of different effective strategies to make that happen. It's something that requires consistent application of effort over time. This is why, you know, eliminating depression or anxiety takes about 60 days, not necessarily 60 seconds. Because for the vast majority of people, we have to make sure that we help you identify what those limiting patterns are at your subconscious level, interrupt them for you, and help you learn how to interrupt them on your own when they resurface. And third, we have to help you understand how to condition and reinforce what the new empowering patterns are going to be that you want to live your life by. That's the real lasting solution. So until you understand exactly how to manifest that process, you know, you'll always be in trouble. So I hope this makes sense, because there are dozens of people every single week that are actually beating anxiety and depression's ass and keeping it beat. You know, I talk to people that we've worked with 6 or 12 months later after the fact. They're still kicking it. They're still doing great. And it doesn't mean you're never going to feel stressed. It doesn't mean you're never going to feel a little bit of a moment of emotional pain, but it does mean you're going to be able to create a situation in which you're no longer out of control of how you feel. It means that if you have that moment of stress, that you can turn that around immediately and quickly. And it means that you will now habitually respond in resourceful and empowering emotional directions, as opposed to engaging in those negative emotional patterns that you have been defined by your past. So, you know, comment below. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on this? Have you had an experience where you've gone a step forward and 2 steps back? What's worked for you in the past? What hasn't worked? You know, I'd love to hear your experience and your thoughts on this, and we'd love to keep the conversation going with you and serve you any way we possibly can. So go ahead, drop a comment below, and we'll be excited to talk to you again soon. Take care.